Here we are looking at the essence of momentum trading. Gary's got 5 solid setups from this week's top momentum list that really epitomise what momentum trading is and are the best examples for it. The funny thing is, it's so much simpler than what we all think it is. So Gary, with that lead in for this week, how are you this Friday?
Yeah, I'm great. Actually. Yeah, I'm pretty pumped actually. The market's behaving. And I watched a reactionary video this week, and then I watched a reactionary video of that reactionary video. Okay. But there was almost like a 1-minute clip which just epitomized the essence of momentum trading, and it explained it so simply. And since I've seen that, it's just kind of like it just made it so much clearer for me just thinking about it. But yeah, if this is the last video I ever do, there'll be a 2-minute summary here, which will basically just explain the whole essence of of momentum trading. And if you just follow these couple of basic little things, you can make a fortune just doing these things. That was my reactionary take from watching 2 reactionary videos of of a trading great, basically explaining momentum trading, and really they're looking at the 10, 20, and 50-day moving average, which we look all the time, Chris. And I was listening to Christian Kalamagi, who is a market wizard, made a fortune trading momentum stocks. Widely regarded as one of the best momentum traders in the world here. But he talked about talks about these momentum shares. I don't know why why the 10, 20, and 50 work, but they do work. The strongest stocks, they hug the 10. The sort of second sort of stronger, that sort of second stronger band, they'll come back to the 20, and then longer terms they'll come back to the 50. Like the stronger names when they go through a bit of a pause and stuff there. But he simplified when he's looking at momentum sort of stocks here. He's really talking about these momentum stocks. They show that relative strength, which we obviously see as stocks on your list. So we get that that sign of strength, that relative strength initially. But what stocks simply do is step higher, then they go sideways. They step higher again, and they go sideways. They step higher again, and they go sideways. Your job as a momentum trader is to anticipate when that next step is developing and then position for the next step higher. That's it. Simpler, just look at the 10, 20, 50, relative strength, step higher, go sideways, step higher, sideways, wait for, learn how to anticipate the next step and position. Simple.
That's perfect. It's simple. I love that definition. And you and I have read hundreds of books ourselves, and that simplifies it so well. And you're going to share with us 5 charts that have come out of the top 30 momentum list that we share with members every single Thursday. They get this list and they get to work through the market leaders. You've chosen 5 that really epitomize this example. What's the first one off the list?
Yeah, number 12 on the list is MYG, which I thought was just a cracking sort of setup here, because it obviously had that sort of strength, and then it's gone sort of sideways through that phase there. And then we do get that classic cup with handle. They jump up, the step sideways, the jump up, the congestion sideways, the jump up, congestion sideways, the jump up there. So we are wait for these congestion there. And then once we come through the congestion zone, we're looking for that little B wave. We're looking to that pocket pivot. We're looking to position once it comes out of that sideways orientation there. But we want to see that sign of strength, sideways, sign of strength, sideways there. Once we start coming through there. So yeah, we can sort of fine tune some of that with looking at strong volume on the up and then volume contracting on the sideways. Now you get VCPs in there, all sorts of setup, but really in layman terms, it's step up, sideways, step up, sideways. Just look for that. If you're new to momentum trading, which a lot of people are, just look for that strong step. So look for a stock that puts it strong, puts its foot down, shows its hand, does something strong there. That's why I sort of people often, they won't buy, they'll see a strong move. I think that's too late. That strong move, that stock should now be on your radar. Basically, if a stock has a really impulsive move, that's the beauty of the system here, is that the launch pad each week is going to show us the stocks that stepped up for that week, who showed the strength for the week. Okay. Then we want to see them sort of congest, tighten up, have a sideways, and then we're anticipating them taking the next step higher. Okay. The quarterly momentum is stocks that are already like MYG here, which has had the step up, gone sideways, stepped 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 up again. Okay. If we know there's momentum stocks, they'll run a lot further than most people anticipate. Okay. But that is the essence there. So that MYG is a cracking chart there. And if we look at some of the volume, some of the heavier volume days as well in here, on these step ups as well with sign of strength. And again, we're looking at these moving averages. So we're looking for them to sort of try and hold these 10 and 20. So we didn't really hold them initially there. Maybe it came back to the 50 in here. Held the 20 initially, but did sort of break below it. Then it did tighten up here on the 10 and then came through here and burst through. This one here sort of, held the 20 as well, and came through. And then it just sort of hugged the 10 all the way through there. That AYA, which was number 2, Chris, I thought was a really good chart here, because this is just, again, we're talking about stocks that, again, once they show that sign of strength, they go through the sideways orientation. So whether that's a VCP or a cup and handle, it's that sort of sideways move there. So again, showing relative strength, struggling to go down and going sideways, and then stepping back up again. So, this has had a few little, had the 52-week high kind of move in here. Then it's gone the sideways there. See how it's sort of really hugged that to the 20, pops out here and goes to it. Now there's a little cup and handle in here, and then it pops through here. But all this move here, you can see how this is hugged the 20 here as well. Still hugging the 20 now. Even today, it's still holding the 20. So someone actually, and I think one of your viewers there asked, someone asked about someone asked about AYA. The AYA there is, so far it's held the 20-day moving average. So Christian Kalamagi is a market wizard there. He'll be telling us we've got to stay long this. So he trades some into heat. So if you get that sort of 3 or 4 big day burst, he'll sell a third or a half, and then he'll carry the rest with that moving average. So this moving average here, you can sort of see it's held the 20 here so far. Still hasn't broken the 20. He's not going to sell this until it breaks the 20. Yeah, occasionally he might break his rules, but if he follows his rules, he will not sort of sell this until it closes below the 20-day moving average. So he'd still be long this stock here at the moment, all the way through here. So just a really good lesson there to be looking at those. So study the 10, 20, and 50. Use volume. Get rid, if you're using, MACDs and Bollinger Bands, RSIs, and all that sort of noise, just get rid of it. If you really want to be a good momentum trader, just learn what the greats are doing. They're all doing the same thing. So we're all looking at 10s, 20s, and 50s. They might, use an EMA versus an MA slightly different, but very, very similar. Okay. They're not using lots of indicators. They're just using price, maybe volume, and those moving averages to sort of, because that moving average, they're showing the strength there of the market as well. So I thought that looks pretty good. FML, look, another great example there, Chris. Initially, when that sort of came out of its cup and handle here, it held the 10. So this was on fire. So it was strong, hugged the 10 there. So again, Kalamagi is looking for that sign of strength, looking for a little sideways pause, come back to the 10. The strongest stocks come back and congest on the 10 here. And once they come through, he's looking to buy that, So that, if you look at that stock here, so that's what, 70 cents there. Okay, so 70 cents. So the stock's basically hit a ceiling here at 70. So it's almost like it's like a seller there selling at 70 cents there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days. 7th day, the seller's gone. Okay, they've eaten through and then the stock. So momentum traders there, will look to sort of try and buy a break of 70. So as soon as it trades 70.5, 71 cents, bang, I'm in. Okay. And they'll often use the low of that day, Chris, as well. So if Kalamagi, if he buys that on a break of say 70 cents, that's opened at 69. That's the low of the day here. You probably have his stop at probably 68 cents, 1 cent below. He's buying it at what, 70.5, 71. So you've got a really tight stop there on the position. And then the thing takes off again, goes sideways again, has that little sideways shimmy. Again, the whole thing tightens up here under 97 cents. Okay. As soon as it breaks to 98 cents, it's hit another ceiling. So this is like, if you think about how the market works there, there'll be a seller there sort of selling. This obviously seller thought, if it gets to $1, I'm going to, start selling some. I'll maybe just under, because sometimes there's lots of people sit at $1. So I often will put a sell order in a cent or two below the big numbers to make sure try and get filled. So someone's obviously been sitting here at 98, and then they eat through it, and then it still holds the 10, holds the 10. Doesn't break the 10 until the 20th of October. And then it comes back here and holds, then it hits the 20 and starts to congest here on the 20. Okay. So if you got knocked out here after getting your, 80 cents to, if you bought some at 70, then you added some at, 98. And then, maybe you got knocked out here at, 213 or, 210 or something like that. It's pretty solid move there. But then the whole thing tightens up again, it holds that then. Then you're looking for maybe like a little B-low break, but holds the 20 here. Then, maybe this can go again here. That 216 is probably that little high low there. So as it comes through 216, try and buy. You can kind of see that day there. So it goes through 216, it goes through to 263, then it comes all the way back. Because I guarantee people would have been buying that little B wave feverishly after this is going to go again. And that drives that stock up quite large in the day. It is up retreating. So you might get a bit nervous by the end of the day, but momentum traders will generally use the low of that day, Chris, as a stop. So that 212 there, they might have been seeing it 211 or 209 or something like that. Maybe send them below there. But then the whole thing, it's still holding the 20 here today. So it's now back above the 10. So if they were back in here, they would be using that 10 or the 20 day as the moving average. So again, they sell some of the heap and hold the rest there. But again, they're just looking at, the thing about the 10, 20, and 50, no one really knows why they work. They just work. And they've worked for a long, long time. You go back and study, you look at all those model books, whether you look at our model books, you look at Trader Line, look at O'Neill's model books, the 10, 20, 50, there's just years and years and years of history of bidding those. They follow those sort of cycles. It's just the way things work there.
And as you load in the other chart, you're talking about that overhead resistance at 98 cents to $1. That's the same as 100 years ago. Jesse Livermore pointed that out when he said, if the stock breaks through 100 or 200 or 300, I'm in, and it might surge another $10 or $20 off the back of it. But so NCC, KCC.
Yeah, KCC. So again, it's got that sort of classic, has that sort of step higher, pretty big volume. That's probably the big blueprint there, is that when you see that big chunky volume, that's when I get excited when I see moves like that big volume. There's actually a few on the launch pad. Even though the market looks pretty weak here, there's actually a few stocks that are broken out here, like on big volume here. So that's how they look when they start like this. And then they tighten up and congest, and then they eventually break through it. You can see this is a nice BCP in here. Under the 50, the whole thing is congested above the 50, which is what you want to sort of see. That's classic, sign of strength, staying above the 50, congesting there, and eventually we come through here, and there's our breakout day on big volume. Okay, so nice signal there. Then it goes up here, it goes again, sign of strength, nice and tight sideways, So step higher, sideways, step higher, comes off here, but that's still a bit of a sideways orientation, a little deeper. But again, it's still held to 50. It's all tightened up here. And again, it comes through the lower high here as well. As a step higher, does come back a bit, but the whole thing does tighten up. The beauty of this one is it does tighten up every time here. That's tight. That's tight. Okay. Even a couple of tightness in here. So again, it's still sort of stepping out. and then sort of stepping and then going sort of sideways. And then you're looking for that break there. So it's tricky there. Sometimes they can get a bit loose. Like this one's a little loose, but the good thing is it does end up tightening up, and it does, if you do get a little ABC or you get a little ABC DE, like you sort of get like a second lower high, then you're getting a lower B wave and a lower entry. That makes sense.
So when you get a tighter, because it takes a bit more volatility, a bit more time.
Yeah.
At volatility, it sets up, if you know how to trade the B wave, it sets up a tighter entry.
Yeah. Yeah. So like this one here, it sort of comes like as like an A, B, C. It's like a little three wave, and then it comes through. So maybe you're waiting for it to break above this high. So you're waiting a bit. Whereas this one comes off fairly hard, but then it bounces again, tightens up, comes off, bounces again, tightens up. So it's tightened up in here. So now all of a sudden we're not looking at this level or this level. We're looking lower. So okay, if it breaks above this little tight range, we can see here, the one thing we don't see through here is selling. So there's no one selling here. The volume's low. Okay. So we're seeing this thing bursting up here on big volume, and the selling's drying up in here. So we're just looking for a sign of strength to go through first little lower high here. That's what we want to see. So, yeah, Casey, that looks pretty nice. It's a little looser, but still good setup, still tightens up here. And I thought NGI was probably the other one, which I thought was pretty good as well, Chris. That did sort of hold, it did sort of tighten up here, come through a little bit of a handle in here. It was a lower handle, and then it made a higher handle, I guess, here as well. But even if you just waited, even if you're late to this party, this was obviously a show of strength in here. And then the whole thing tightened up in here. The beauty about this is your BCP. So it's a little long in size, and maybe doesn't sort of, the perfect VCP according to Minervini is sort of like it goes like a dollar correction, 50 and 25. It gets smaller. But sometimes they can just they can be a little not as clean. But what's most important is that sign of strength initially, and then for the thing to sort of hold tight, to stay in the top half, top third, or top quarter, even better. So the higher you stay in the range, the better. So in this case here, this has stayed pretty high, pretty tight here. It hasn't really sold off much there. And then it comes through here. Again, you sort of see, look at this through here. It's just, you're not seeing any heavy volume through here. So that day there was a bit of a clue. See that day off the low there, all of a sudden, a bit of a buying here. The next two down days,
that's a Wyckoff anomaly, that down day, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then you get the range.
Get a bit more volume here, and then this day here, you're actually coming through. You're actually breaking that B wave on that day. So that's enough for me to actually react to that. So,
and on the reaction, I'm going to step in for the viewers at home who are going to be, hopefully they're at the stage where they're asking these questions themselves and thinking, well, what about that 50-day moving average that Gary's talking about? That's the red line. It's closed below it. Now, I get that it's kind of forming a VCP. It's still in the top quarter of that range, the breakout from the June lows to the August highs. We're sitting in that top third quarter.
Yeah.
But it's broken the 50-day moving average. How do you interpret that action there when we're at the business end of this VCP, this contraction, but it's getting a bit loose? This is for losers. So we've got a few conflicting thoughts here. How would you interpret and trade it in the heat of the moment? I get it's hindsight now.
It's a small negative that we have broken that 50, but really the whole thing has stayed pretty tight it's probably stayed in the top third of the range for that stock in terms of where it's come from and gone straight up here and then stayed pretty tight here. What's the last thing you see on this chart here, Chris, which something that you built to look for? What's the moving averages all doing?
Yeah, coiled and compressed. They're all like on top of each other. You can't see which one's which. Yeah, yes, we have a little filter for that. Members have that every day.
So when you sort of see that, when they all sort of catch up, when they all converge together, sort of almost drying up here and then converging at that, you saw that right there. I mean, there's 3 or 4 days in there, all the MAs are all converging. So so what you want to do is you want to sort of see, I mean, you might have been worried a little bit here breaking the 50 there, closing there, but you wouldn't be buying that day. You'd only be buying once it closes back above the 50 and shows that.
It's over there.
which it did. Yeah. So really we're closed above there. So that's, if anything, there's a few little throwbacks there to probably try and throw us, try and scare us out. But when the price action there was pretty solid there. So yeah, well, you'll see sometimes I've been occasionally shook out by some of them, buying with the 20s and stuff there by being too tight. So I try and give myself a couple cents leeway on using those moving averages, because I can just come back and kick it by a cent or two, just, because again, market knows where everyone's sitting here and there's more and more people looking at momentum, pace sort of stuff. So it will try and shake out a little bit. So you do have to allow for that. But this has come out of here and just held, so far it's held the 10. So if you were lucky enough to be long this stock here, you'd be using the 10 days moving average, which still hasn't broken here. So, so really just, I think it's, that, I think it was Lance Bernstein did the reactionary video to the Christian Calamagi video, which I think is an absolute cracker. And someone else has done a reaction video to that video as well. And now we're doing another reaction video to that video again as well. So it's, but, there's
the best traders of our times right now.
Mate, Bernstein's made $1 million in one day. He's legendary for that trade there. There's a Tesla trade there. But and Calamagi's obviously legendary as well. So Christopher Yule's not quite as legendary yet, and neither am I, but we're working on it. So
hard to work on it.
Yeah. But no, but it is. I watched that. I just thought, man, that's just simplified, because I sort of probably feel like I've kind of lost. I had a pretty good move, pretty good start of the year, but the last couple of weeks I've probably gotten away from my core a little bit. But just every and again, you sort of got to keep sort of growing, got to keep your knowledge there. I think watching a good trading video every and again just kind of, just clarifies,
keeps you back on point, because we all sit on most of this to trade by ourselves. Yeah. So it's
simple. Sometimes we overcomplicate it as well. We can try and do too much in the market. They are probably trying to do too much, trying to give me positions on, trying to be on the short side, trying to be momentum. It's hard to do everything. So that's why the best traders are all specialized and have a pretty tight process. So just get that narrow process.
You've given us the essence of momentum trade, and you've summarized that into the step up, step sideways, and how to spot it. 5 key examples to the momentum leaders on the ASX right now. You did also mention and indicate that the Launchpad helps us identify the companies that have put their hand up and said, I'm breaking out, I'm showing my hand, and I'm stepping up now. When you look through the Launchpad, which is sent out to members, they get at the same time you do to sort through the top 30. Within that list, which companies are popping their hand up to possibly say, hey, look, I am becoming a momentum leader. Put me on your short list because I'm showing that I've got the legs to get going. Which one stands out first?
WR1 is definitely one of those stocks that looks, resembles, quite a few of those charts we just showed there. How we've had that burst off the low, tight VCP pattern, had another burst. Most importantly, those bursts are coming on pretty good volume. So we saw the first move here, some okay volume through here, tightens up here, But again, look at that big burst there. That's big volume there. And the whole thing tightens up again. And now we've got big volume again here. So again, that's what we want to sort of see. That's how those sort of momentum leaders often sort of start, is with that impulsive move, so step up and then step sideways, and then step up, step sideways. When you're seeing that big volume come through there, that's what really catches the eye. So when I see that chunky volume, because that's like 2 or 3 times average volume there, Chris. So that should be letting you that, hey, wow, that's someone's buying this up aggressively here. And then that's a nice little, it goes back up here. It's a nice cup and handle here, set up here. It's just sort of, hugs of 50. Yeah, maybe it spends one day below here, but again, look at that, no volume, no selling on it. So. And then it starts to come through here, a little B-weight break here on the 10th of November. It's on massive volume. This is following massive volume, following strong volume as well. So that's a good setup there. So that's definitely one I would be watching pretty closely. CXL, there's a bit of a VCP in there, not quite as sexy or aggressive type of volume that we saw in the last, some of those other names, but still got a really impulsive move and then pull back to a little deep, but they can start that way. Then we get impulsive again and then pull back, get impulsive again. So this is definitely one to keep an eye on there because it is sort of setting up a VCP sort of style, but so it's definitely one that I will be watching. ASN, again, all that's a really impulsive move, and now it's sort of pulled back, had a bit of bounce again, pulled back, had a bounce again. So I haven't seen the sort of next wave of chunky volume coming in yet, but that's definitely on the radar to keep an eye on. So that's a bit of a smaller name for me, but that's the type of thing that I would be looking for. SGI I thought looked pretty interesting as well. So thinking about this stock here, Chris, is that, had that strong run. Again, all that, chunky volume there and then gone sideways. Had a strong run through here. There's some pretty heavy volume there. I mean, there's that sort of move there where you see that impulsive move, ends up holding there. Those are probably a day that I would probably, be looking to sort of try and potentially enter there or, or look for a break above this, but it actually flashes down here. So it might have coaxed you out this trade, you might have made a mistake. Like I'll probably, seeing that break the 10 and be down on.
I would have been stopped out. If there was a profit pivot on this 18th, I would have been in and then stopped out.
Yeah. Well, it didn't actually, hold the 10S. If you go early there, sometimes, you might buy like a little Eddie stake. I try and wait for the break of that, I try and wait for a, sign of strength that makes, break a high there. Look, if you do a little sneaky starter, then it's tiny there, but yeah, you're looking, once it comes through here, that definitely shows that strength there. But it does get a bit messy here. But the thing about this is this correction has largely gone sideways. So if you do see that sort of strong move up and then you see a time-consuming pullback, this has really just gone sideways that whole period there. So it is still in that sort of step higher sort of sideways. And sometimes those sideways can be quite long. And you prefer to see them sort of shorter, narrower, from a momentum point of view. But sometimes those sideways orientation can be quite a while here. But interesting here that once we came through here, once we've gone to a new high here, you would have had to have actually, this is like an AP here. So seeing that use there and coming through the high there could have been a trigger there. Someone was watching that stock here. But yeah, breaking above the swing high would probably be what I was looking for there. I thought that looked pretty interesting. It still had some pretty solid volume there. So I would still be monitoring that one. Is that the 4? Have I covered the...
That's the 4 on the launch pad. What we've got is a whole nother video for the members where they put through their requests. So they can click on through. They'll get that video where we go through in detail for the list. If you want the same list that the members get and that Gary gets for the full 30 launch momentum leaders and launchpad leaders, then you can click join below. That'll come through every Thursday. And if you want to enhance that trading knowledge, that eye to find those step up, step sideways, click on the model books that we've got to the right-hand side, the charting eye. There's a whole series of videos to exercise that and print that into the back of your brain. So as a momentum trader, when we see these, we light up and go, oh, that's a jackpot. I need to trade that. It becomes a gut instinct. And to that point, we say thank you very much, Gary Glover from Novus Capital.
Thanks, Chris.